Hi, this looked like a good opportunity to do a short video to show y'all what I do when I'm processing a correlation table directly from SPSS output to Excel to Word. So I wanted to show you guys kind of my process and maybe show you some tricks on things I do there. So all I did so far is I requested correlations between study variables, and I also requested the mean and standard deviation when I did that. So I have the correlation table and the means and standard deviation. What I'm going to do is export this table. So I right click and do export, and now in this export output dialog box, I want to go to Excel, right there, the Excel 2007 and higher, SPSS, and I need to give this a name, and I'm going to call it Homework 3 Correlations. Sure, that'll work. And then I have one more OK to hit for it to actually do that. Cool. Now I should be able to open it and go to Lab 3 Correlations right there, or Homework 3 Correlations. We have the correlation table from SPSS output. So it looks pretty much like that. Here I'm going to copy. So I'll go down to the tab where it says Sheet 1, and I right click and I put Move or Copy, and I'm going to move it to the end but create a copy and hit OK. And this one's going to be my actual correlation table, because in case I mess something up here, I don't have to do that whole export process again. I can just go ahead and work with, I can make another copy. So that's why I copy over. Let me make this bigger so that y'all can see what I'm up to. So I'm on the Core Table tab. First thing I'm going to do is get up here in the corner box and select that so that it selects the entire page. And here I'm going to turn off some things. I want to turn off the borders, put that the no border. I'm going to take off any kind of shading. So for the shading I put no fill. And see how over here these cells are merged together? Well, that's going to be problematic. So when I have the whole sheet selected, I'm also going to turn off the merging. So I went to Merge and Center, and I'm hitting Unmerge Cells. So now they're all in their own rows and own cells. And it definitely gets worse before it gets better. I'm going to add a column to the left side here, because I know I'm going to want the 1, 2, 3 to be able to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up here along the top. And again, I only need half of this triangle, right? But I also don't need significance and how many every time. So I'm going to hold down my Control or Command key. Control if you're on PC, Command if you're on Mac. And I'm going to select all the rows that are the significance or the sample size. Just going to take all of those, and I can even get rid of this last row, which is just telling us the asterisks for correlations. So I have all of those selected. I let go of the Command key, and I'm going to right click here in that green area along the side and go to Delete. Now that just brought it all up so that all I have are the correlations. Awesome, that's what I want. Now for my correlation table, I'm also going to want means and standard deviations. So I'm going to not need it to say Pearson correlation over and over again, so I can clear out that information. but I'm going to need both mean and standard deviation. So I'm going to right click up here in the column and insert a new column here so that I can have mean and SD. Cool. Here I'm not going to need that correlations because I'll give it a regular table name when I get there. But these I need to redo so that they're not abbreviations. Okay, so I want it a little wider. Another thing I'm going to do with selecting the whole thing is make sure everything's top aligned so that it's not moving around a lot when I'm trying to convert this over to Word. And I'm going to want these as 1, 2. Once I have a couple of numbers in there, I can select those cells and then sneak up on the corner there where it changes from a white plus with black outline to a black plus with white outline. And once I have that, I can click and drag and it'll add the other numbers in there. So now I can do just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And again, I'm not going to need 6 because it's just job sat related to job sat. So I can go ahead and take that column off. And I'm not going to need all of these numbers. I'm going to hold my command key again and just select all of these because I'm not going to need those. So I'm going to hit delete and clear out all that. Cool. So it's coming together. I need my mean and standard deviation. So I'm going to go back to my output, back to the SPSS output. And this table doesn't have all the in-between rows. So this one I should be able to just copy that information. So I dragged to select and I did the right click to get the copy. I can also do the keystroke, so Command or Control C for copy. Sometimes one works and one doesn't, and I'm not sure what the difference is sometimes, but I'm trying to copy these numbers over to my Excel sheet. So now I'm going to move over to my Excel right there. And first I'm just going to paste down below just in case it doesn't paste right. And it did it. It got a 9. I'm not even sure why it got a 9. So I'm going to try that again. Go back over to this table. Why won't it copy for me? Oh, see, it's selecting that 9 there as well. Maybe that's what it was grabbing. What I want is these. I think that's what happened. Like somehow it's grabbing that 9, and that's not what I want. Let me see if it'll paste. Okay. So somehow on the pivot table there, it was picking up the font size 9 and copying that, and I'm not sure why, but what I wanted was these numbers, and it looks like it finally got it. I can tell it to match destination formatting, so hopefully it stays the same, but usually I have to check the font on this whole thing. But it came in fine. Now I can copy from here and go ahead and place it where I want it. Cool. And then I'll get rid of that. So now we have different font sizes here. We have different decimal places. So what I'm going to do is for the mean and standard deviation, I'm going to turn it to number, and that brought it down to 2 decimal places. Now typically when we're writing up in APA, we only use 1 decimal place for mean and standard deviation. In a table you can use more, but then be consistent. Like if you're going to go with 2 decimal places, keep it like that for both the mean and standard deviation throughout the table. But in your write-up, you would only do 1. So I have those 2 down. And also with mean and standard deviation, because they can go above 1, they get a leading 0. If, like for this one, 092, you would keep the leading 0 on standard deviation, because both mean and standard deviation can be more than 1. Not the case with correlations. Correlations don't go above 1, so we don't need a leading 0 for them. And looks like it's happy right now, just the way it is. So I think I'm not going to mess with this. Usually if I have a negative or it's put in leading zeros, like there's a leading 0 that I'll need to take care of. I might just take care of that in Word, or I can do it here. Just got to put a apostrophe in front, and then I'm going to go ahead and bring it down to, all the rest are at 3 places, so I'm just going to keep it with that. And again, then I want all my correlations to be at 3 places. So this would be 0, 7, 8 if I went to 3 places. So what the apostrophe does is tell Excel, hey, just treat this as text, don't treat it as a number. And sometimes you got to do that for Excel because it thinks that asterisks mean you want it to multiply, or if you have a negative correlation, it thinks that you are trying to subtract something. So you use an apostrophe to get around that. I notice that my fonts are different. This is Arial 12, this is Calibri 11. So I'm going to try to get all of those to do the same thing. There's 11. Let's see if we can get it to do Calibri. Okay, so now they're all at least the same font. And as long as that's what I'm writing in as well on the paper, we're cool. If you need to change it to something else, you can do Times New Roman and 12. That's fine. Usually I try to keep a limit on how big the font gets in the table because it tends to not want to fit. Here I'm going to try to make it just as little as possible because I know when I get over to Word I might be fighting this table. Another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to have these centered. These 2 need to be italics. But all of my numbers here, I'm going to go ahead and make them left aligned. And it's because I'm going to show you a different way of aligning the numbers. APA is fine with us being centered. So centering your numbers, even if that makes them look jacked out, that's okay. APA is cool with that. Sometimes it bugs me just because, you know, OCD. But I can show you how we can align them by the decimal point. But to do that, we want these left aligned right there. So I think this is ready. I'm going to go ahead and put a table name here. I'll put means, standard deviations, and correlations. Oops, between study variables. We'll see if that'll fit. I'm not merging it here, this cell, because it's easier for me to merge cells in Word later. And I might want to make sure this is not adding a whole bunch of space. There we go. So what I did is I clicked, when it turns into like the up and down arrow right there in between rows where you can adjust row height, I got right there and I double clicked so that it would go to just the height that's needed. So I'm reducing how much space this table needs as much as possible before I try to cross it into Word. I'm going to center those numbers. I'm going to leave this as long as it is just because it looked like job-based feedback might try to wrap around. All right, I think I'm ready to take this over. Go ahead and italicize that guy. And notice I didn't include the table number. It's fine. It's easy for me to just add the table number later in Word. So I'm going to Control or Command C to copy this whole piece. And I'm going to go to my Word document. Let me bring that over. I'm going to put it right here. So there's my table. And it looked like it fit okay. It looks a little crowded right in here. And you can light the whole thing up. So selecting the table is that little crosshairs in a square. And when you want to do something to the whole table or you want to kind of see the whole thing, it's easy to select it there. And when you do that, you get these areas called Table Design and Layout added to your menu ribbon up here. And those are specific to that table that was selected. Another thing I can do in the Home tab is turn on Show Hide Characters, which tells you where the cells are. It does make it look a little busy, so if it's like too distracting, you just turn it back off, right? But I'm going to use it because, let's see, I want a little more room right there. Let's see if I can take this column. So you're looking for when your cursor turns into a down arrow like that. When it does that is typically when it's selected the column. And this is looking like it's grabbing that one. I only want this column right now. And I'm trying to make it just a tash bigger that way. I wonder, let me try to get all of these columns. And in the layout area, I can do distribute columns, so it makes them the same size. Okay, that helped a lot. Do you see how it's spaced out everyone a little bit better? Cool, I like that. So I took just the columns that I wanted to adjust, and I did distribute columns in the layout. Cool. Now here I wanted to show you what I do to kind of align these guys by their decimal point. Because like sometimes when you're centering, like if I just center these numbers right here, they're kind of jacked out. They're not like lined up very well because these have asterisks and this one doesn't. So it starts looking a little janky. It's fine, it's APA solid, but there's a different way that you can use. So I'm going to go to put it back to left aligned where it was. I'm going to turn off all of these non-printing so we can see a little bit better. And one thing I have turned on here is the ruler. And you might not have the ruler in view on your defaults. The way you get to it is you go to View and you check this box that says Ruler. When you do that, it adds the ruler to the top there. So I'm going to Layout so I can work with this table. And what I'm going to do, you're familiar with a tab, like when you're just tabbing things over, right? And a tab looks like it's doing an indent. A tab looks like that arrow in non-printing characters. Sometimes Word will turn it to an indent for you because it thinks that that's what you want. But it's not what I was trying to show you. So typically your tab just goes to a setting on the ruler. But what I want is I want to align these by the decimal place. And here in mean, it looks like they're all aligned by decimal place anyway. But here in this top corner, you're looking at this symbol. And this symbol tells you what type of tab is being used right now. And right now, the type of tab being used is a, I think it's a left tab. But if I'm going to click it, and now it's a center tab where it's just an up arrow. I'm going to click it again, and now it's a right tab, like if you needed the words to go off to the right. And one more, now I have an up arrow with a period at the bottom. that's a decimal tab. In other words, it aligns to the decimal, the tab space. So up here in the ruler, I'm going to add a tab by clicking the ruler. And I'm trying to gauge for right above that M, but kind of on the left side of it, like right there. And it adds that tab, which is a decimal tab, right where I clicked. Now if I feel like it's not quite centered under the M the way I want, I can take that tab and like drag it a little bit over. Not by much. So I'm liking that one better. And then I can select the next set of numbers in this column under SD, and I'm still selected at a decimal tab. I'm going to go and put the decimal tab right there. Cool. Same thing for each column. I select the column first, I go up into the ruler, and I kind of decide where I want that decimal to be landing, and then it lines it up. So select, add that one's pretty far over. Let me see what's going on. That guy should line up, and I'm not sure why he's not. Maybe he's got a space in front of him. Okay, that's better. It was too far over, but now my decimals line up. This one, and sometimes this changes the width of your columns. Oops, that was a mistake. Whenever you make a mistake, you can do Command Z and it takes that back off. So there we go. And the last one. Okay. So now I'm going to turn off non-printing and just take a look. So now it's looking pretty good. I still need my table number. I need my my note at the bottom. I'm seeing that this looks a little gray, so it might be that when I copied it over, I didn't realize that it was not all black font color. So I can click the whole thing and make sure that it's black. And I still need my borders, right? I still need my lines. So I can do the lines. I can select a row, and selecting row means waiting until your cursor is kind of leaning to the right there. And you can select the whole row. So what I want is this row, because I want a line under these column headers, but I also want a line above it. So that was my bottom and top border using the border tool there. I'm going to need a border on the bottom here, but before I do that, I'm going to hit Tab here to add another row. So if I turn on non-printing, I see that I added another row to that table. Now this one I'm going to merge. I can do that in Layout, merge cells, and I can merge this one as well. Now it added extra returns there, no problem, just gotta back them out. And I have this one that's now a merged row across. I can put the note and anything that I need in the note. For APA, note is italicized, and typically your note is less font size. I'm going to back that note down to a size 10 because typically the notes are smaller font size. And also what I can do is add the top border there. And there we go. It looks like all I have to do is add my table number, make sure everything's the same font, and this is ready to go. So that's what we have for building a table going from SPSS to Excel to Word when I export the table from SPSS. So have fun with that, and I'll see you in the next lab.